This is the Unsweetened Truth with Kristen Pucci, where we talk about everything but don't sugarcoat anything. Welcome back to the Unsweetened Truth with Kristen Pucci. Today I have a friend and an employee and so much more on the podcast, Carolyn Barton. Carolyn, welcome.
Hi. This is so weird being on this side of the pod.
Yes.
I normally sit right over there with my little headphones on, adjusting everybody's microphones. So,
yep, the girl that's usually hiding in the corner is now in front of the microphone. Me and Gina have been dying to get Carol on this side. So we've got it situated. But it's interesting. So today we're going to talk about a topic that we have not prepped for whatsoever, but we know we want to talk about it, is that Carolyn and I are friends, but we are also coworkers. And that dynamic comes up a lot in business, especially in small businesses. And I know there's going to be some people that are going to benefit from what we've done well and what we haven't done well in regards to keeping that balance, respecting boundaries, and just all the things. That's an interesting dynamic to have to navigate. I think sometimes friends even become like business partners together. And it's just, I think if we can offer some advice or just kind of tell a little bit about our story, I think it would be helpful.
yeah. I think it's interesting because we did not start as friends.
Yeah, I didn't even know who you are.
We
didn't know who each other
started, and I think that's like something that people always ask us is like, oh, were you friends first or were you...
We're sisters.
People ask us all the time if we're sisters.
They ask if we're sisters.
Every time we both have our hair done the same way, it's like, oh, you two are related, right? No, just two blondes.
Anyway, but yeah, talking about being friends. But no, go keep going with what you're saying. So we originally were not friends.
We were not. We just started as strangers, and I wanted to work at Cray, and we became friends through working together. Yeah. Which I feel like is not like the typical route.
Yeah, I don't know what is.
I feel like the typical route is to not be friends with your coworkers at all.
Yeah.
Like not close
from employer. And I think what's different too is like I'm the employer and she's the employee. So that's another extra dynamic that we've had to navigate. I would say it's actually interesting. I was trying to think of like when we actually became friends. I think it was that trip to go see Ray.
I was going to say that too.
Because that really forced us. So we had to go visit, it was our first talent client that we ever had, Ray Ripple, which we love her. She'll hopefully be on the podcast here in the next couple of months. We obviously live apart from each other. So long distance girlies. But, we had to go visit her for the first time ever. That was in like, wasn't it like June or July? Because it was so hot.
Yeah, I think it was June.
Yeah.
Because I started with the company like officially in April.
Yeah, and it was like 2 months in, and then you were like, we're going on this trip.
And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm an adult.
Yeah, we were going on a trip. We're going on a business trip because we had to go visit this talent client. And we had signed her at that point, and we had to go meet her, and we were going to take videos. We were going to learn about her. We had a bunch of goals for the trip and everything. And Carolyn was going, and then we also had another employee at the time. I don't think Gina had started yet. Was Gina, or she had literally just started.
Literally just started.
Like literally just started. That's true because then I was like gone and shoot. Yeah.
I think it was like literally
the next week or something.
Like 2 weeks after she started.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, because it was like boom, boom, boom hiring for a bit. Yeah.
Well, because we hired her right after her birthday, I think.
Remy.
Or before? No, I think it was before.
It's been so long. I feel like you guys have been here forever.
Yeah, literally.
So yes, we went on this business trip. So we had to fly together. We had to cohabitate together. We all had our own hotel rooms and stuff, which was a phenomenal deal that they worked out for us.
That place was so nice.
So nice. Hotel Settles was a blast. They worked out a deal for us, but we traveled together. We had to work together. And like, if anybody's traveled with coworkers or employees, people just have different ways that they travel. They have different expectations. So it was like a very high pressure situation right off the bat, which I think people sink or swim in, which is interesting because you swam and the other one sunk.
That's why I was laughing. Is I was like, well, it'll make or break.
But it was a pressure cooker. I think that's really what it was. It was a pressure cooker because I remember at the time I was not really friends with either one of you whatsoever, and going through like a stress, it wasn't even stressful, but a high intense, traveling. Meeting a new client.
I don't think stressful is necessarily a bad thing. It was, I mean, for me, it was stressful because I was the one like taking the pictures, and we had
you had responsibilities.
We had like one shot, and also it was like my first work trip on my first job, and it was a huge high profile client. Yeah. And I was like, and I feel like in that situation, like I typically would be like very short and like, I got to get my job done. I got to do it right. But like, I feel like because we were all so, not all of us, you and I were so like
in sync.
Yeah. Yeah. We both like recognized that it was a big deal and we wanted to do this really great, but we also recognized that we didn't know Ray and she didn't know us. And we wanted to really like make her comfortable. And that's when like Ray and I really bonded, was when I was taking pictures and she was like, she said that she had never had like pictures taken that way, where it was like,
which was
so
crazy
and so
which was crazy because this girl is throwing up poses like she's been on New York Fashion Week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've never done this before.
Literally the easiest person to take photos
like,
of, because she knows her angles.
She does.
Yeah. But
she knows everything.
That trip in general was just like kind of.
Yeah.
So a tip, like the catalyst of it.
Yeah. And so a tip that I would give, and I love that we just give random tips sometimes, but if you're an employer trying to weed out your employees, travel with them. Because seriously, travel with them. I think just weeding out people in general, travel with them, because it just gives such a good insight to how this person deals with pressure, how they deal with being in a new place, navigating for specific types of roles, right? Don't travel with every employee that you have. And if someone, specifically struggles with traveling, that's something that you'd have to navigate with them independently. But like, it is so fascinating what you learn about people when you travel with them. And I think that is something that I think we were able to see each other so early for who we were because of that trip. And then I was like, this chick's real. I was like, she's got her act together. And I remember from, even if you didn't feel like it, because that's Carol's thing. I did not. Because you probably didn't feel like it. But like I guess what I'm looking for, right, as an employer is like, okay, I just remember Carolyn being like, I'll help. What do you need me to do? Where can I go? Like, you want that type of employee that's very like, coach, like I say jump and you go how high. And like Carolyn is very that person, but it makes her happy to do that too. Like she loves to do that. Yeah, sometimes too much.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it's my natural like instinct to be like, I'll be the first one to help. And like to a fault, as you were just saying. Like it's gotten me in a situation.
We could do it maybe 75% of the time.
I feel like maybe 50. Like,
maybe 50.
I
you overcommit.
I overcommit and I spread myself too thin.
Yeah. Which you learn. You learn from overcommitting and spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah. And I feel like I've been, specifically in like the last year, I've been like way more selective, because I remember this time last year just thinking how like burnt out I was, like just socially and emotionally. And I was like, I have to start putting like boundaries in place because I have none. And the ones that I put up, I let people walk through.
Yep. And
I feel like this year I've actually, that was one of my goals, and that's something that I feel like I have accomplished pretty well. Is I'm not there 100% of I'm sure. Could absolutely be better.
Yeah, I don't think anybody
but it's something that I definitely feel like I've improved on this year.
And I think that's a great segue. Boundaries. That's something I think between us that we've just learned and evolved through.
Are learning and evolving through.
Yeah, like we always are, because we're changing, right? Like we're changing as people. We're changing as people while also changing as employees, while also changing just like in general, all at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so interesting about, you and Gina, right? Is that both of you came to this company with no real professional previous experience of work. Like you guys did some internships and different things like that. But working in that like adult setting with, high stress and different things or whatever was very different for both of you. But having you both in your early 20s, when you first start working here right out of college, that person is learning how to live just as much as they're learning how to work, which is interesting to navigate. And I'd say that has been interesting for us, because me being the boss of the company, which I think has been good for us, but also not good for us, is obviously I'm going to naturally fall into like that leadership authoritative role, but then also trying to balance that with being your friend. Yeah. But it's interesting. Your personality that we found is that you don't like to ever challenge, which is good from the, like the business side. You're someone who like very much so respects authority or whatever, which I'd say has been a testament to this working out well. Yeah. Because if you constantly questioned me because you're my friend, that would have been like, all right. Yeah. That would have been a problem. But then from like a friend perspective, I don't know. So do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head with the fact that I am like we are very opposite in a lot of ways. Like I am extremely like, I like to follow the rules. The rules are in place for a reason. And, you know, the person who enforces the rules is the person that's in charge, and we listen to that person. And again, like to a fault. And
what
you
am I?
are the total opposite. Like the rules are a suggestion, and
if
90% of the time you're not taking that suggestion, which is good. I mean, both things have their pros and cons.
I ain't doing it.
Yeah, both things have their pros and cons, because I feel like that is why
it's worked well.
It's worked well specifically in a business setting.
Yeah.
Because we kind of, not like good cop, bad cop, but like we can kind of play off of each other, where it's like, is this email too nice? Like I'm always like,
and is mine too mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like we can always kind of like soften and toughen each other at the same time, which I think has been very helpful. Yeah. Not just in a professional setting, but also in a personal setting. Like I think I've learned a lot of my like boundary setting through that, because I'm like, wow, like you don't let anybody cross your boundaries, and I'm like, wait, I don't think I even have any in place.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I think, but that's also been an element that I think has been challenging.
Yes.
Is that I'm older and I'm the boss. So naturally you want to fall into this type of like older sister / mentor / is there anything else that you would call it?
No, I feel
like you just like a mentor. Like you want, I mean, and think about it, right? If anybody that's older, they have younger siblings, right? Like I have a younger brother, but I don't have younger sisters. But like it's interesting that I just know that I've always wanted sisters, and it's so funny that I have all these girlfriends now, and like I have, you know, Gina and Carolyn at the company, and I do consider them in some ways my younger sisters, but also just my friends. And it's challenging, and something that I had to learn, especially this year, was letting go was a huge thing for me, but also letting people deal with the consequences of their own actions.
Totally.
I know that was something that has caused, you have a better vocabulary than I do. Friction. What a great word. But friction between us was, I would try to guide and advise you and prevent you from falling off the cliff that I know was about to come, because I've done it. I've been there. I've lived, you know, I'm the older sister. That's like, I'm older, wiser, smarter. If I could just, and the reason why we give that advice is because we're like, if I could save you from dealing with some BS financially, or heartache, or sorrow, or frustration, you try to do that for the people that are younger than you, or the people that you mentor, the people that you care about. Yeah. But it's interesting from your perspective that you want to experience that.
Yeah, I have, as the youngest, I'm the youngest sibling of 4 kids, and I've had like, my family's like pretty close knit, and like we're pretty close knit, but we have a pretty significant age gap. So I feel like most of my life it's been like, well, don't do it this way because that's what I did, and I'm like, okay. And then it's every single person, because a lot of my friends are older than me too. So it's like all these voices are just constantly saying like, don't do it this way, it'll mess you up. And I'm like, I'm just trying to do it at all. Yeah. And constantly having like well, you know, do it this way, this will be better, or don't get involved with this person because that's down a bad road. And I'm like, did you guys know that? because it's not that I want to, you know, inflict that pain on myself, but it's like, I am a trial by fire kind of person. Like there's no way that I'm going to learn those things by somebody just telling me not to do them. Yeah. I also get overwhelmed very easily, which is like not a surprise to anybody who knows me who's listening to this, but I get really overwhelmed with the opinions of other people. And so when I have like all these conflicting opinions, or even just like, hey, I'm trying something, vitamins, for example. Like there's been many times where I'm like, I'm going to try out this new vitamin. And you're like, well, it needs to be this kind of thing. And there needs to be certain bioidentical. And I'm like, okay, so never mind. I'm not going to try the vitamin because there's too many things that could go wrong. And I don't want it to go wrong. So I feel like I'm a very all or nothing type of person, which is also something that I'm working on. But, you know, that's okay. I'm 26. Like I'm a work in progress.
No, everybody's working hard. Which is funny when you talk about that, though, because I'm just thinking to myself, that is such a hard balance that I have to navigate with being your boss, but also being your friend. Because as partially as your boss,
it's your job.
I can't, well, not even that it's my job. There's things that I can't let you do and figure out. because like, because it's an impact on the business and on the company. Like as a boss, I have to be much tighter with things than I do as a friend.
Yeah.
But as other bosses and owners now out there and people who have employees, from an emotional standpoint and from their growth, you do kind of want them to figure these things out. So those things do align, but what do you do when it happens at the impact of money, right? Or clients or whatever. So that balance is something that I constantly have to navigate, which I would say is impressive. But like that's something that's constantly on my plate, is like, okay, you want to allow them to experience this and work this out, but not at the detriment or how much risk, or, okay, we want them to figure this out, or I want you to figure this out, but it's on a low stakes situation to figure it out, not high stakes.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think like the reverse of it as the employee, not the employer, is that it's hard to, and I think it's something that we do well, it's hard to kind of switch your mindset where if it's a Friday and like it hits the fan during work.
Yeah.
And then like we have plans to go out for dinner that night. And, like as friends, I'm like, okay, I got ripped this morning. This is not going to be fun. But you just have to like kind of switch that attitude because it's, and I think that is why we do it well, because I recognize that like that is for the benefit of the company.
Yeah.
And like when we're friends, it's for the benefit of each other. Like I know that you are not like ripping me, which it sounds like it happens all the time. But like if something goes wrong, I know that
I think
the discipline is because it's a work thing.
Sure.
And it has to be fixed.
Which is so hard for anybody who's friends with their employees. That's the single hardest thing, is the discipline might be the wrong word, but that you have to have accountability, right? That like you have to have accountability with someone. You can't let something slide just because they're your friend, right? But then navigating and being able to communicate, which I think is something we do really well. I would say, especially on my end, that you've learned more of is communication. Like I have to explain why I'm doing something and what's the purpose of it and like whatever, versus just like making a snap judgment and then like providing a rule. Yeah. Because again, I was just telling somebody this quote the other day, but I think it very much so applies, is that rules without relationship equals rebellion. And I would say overall, my employees are very, very loyal to me. And I am convinced that the reason that is because I have specifically spent a lot of time with all of them in building a relationship. So if I implement a rule or I implement some type of something that is holding them accountable, I don't think anybody loves rules all the time, but I think that the impression that they have is that this is for them, not against them, or that I'm trying to be some dictator, is that there's a purpose for it. And then I try to explain it very thoroughly. So, because I'm trying to limit the rebellion piece, because rebellion will naturally occur if you don't have a relationship with somebody and they're trying to tell you to do something, because you're going to be like, oh, screw that person. Like, what are they doing trying to tell me to do something? They don't even care about me, which is really what it is. Yeah. If someone gives you a rule and you don't feel like they care about whether or not you do well or you don't, that's when you rebel.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. The last year has been brutal.
Carol's much more nervous about this than I am. But that's just our personality. It's just our personality.
It's just who we are.
Yeah.
But no, I mean,
it's nothing that we haven't already talked about. We're just talking about it publicly.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, but I guess last year in August-ish, I got a promotion to a role that included managing people. And so for the next year, we were trying to kind of like mold me to be able to take on these new roles. And for lack of a better term, it was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Like, it's just not something that I am cut out for.
Right now. I want to clarify right now. I think we maybe did it to her. I don't know that it's ever.
Sure.
I think it's just right now. She was given a significant amount of responsibility in managing client communication. So you're managing clients, subcontractors, as well as, well, it wasn't really anybody internally, but it was just, subcontractors and then, contractors, yourself, and clients.
Yeah. And it really impacted our personal relationship because I not only was just like insecure in my abilities to, which I can see this now standing
on the other side of it.
On the other side of it, the issue has been resolved. But
this is the first time I'm hearing about it. Okay, tell me.
No, but
we sat on this couch and we talked for like 2 hours talking about it. So.
Yeah, I can say this now standing with hindsight that my insecurity was really something that was driving a lot of the conflict that Kristen and I were having, both personally and professionally, because I was feeling, I don't think people realize how much, or maybe they do, and it was just because this is my first job, how much being insecure in your work role trickles into the rest of your life. Like, you start to question, like, I'm insecure as a friend. Like, if I can't do this at my job, how am I going to keep up my friendships?
Yeah.
Or my relationship? Like, am I a good enough girlfriend if I am pouring everything into work and then having a bad attitude at the end of the day when it comes to being with, you know, my boyfriend or, you know, with my family? The only thing that they ask me when I show up is, you know, how's work going? Like, has it gotten any better? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. Like, I just want to talk about, like, me as a person. But I realize that that's my own doing, is like, I come to them and I'm like, yeah, like, I'm still trying to work this out and I just can't get it right and whatever. So of course it's natural for people to ask how it's going.
Sure.
But I feel like that's just such a huge part, and I'm very lucky that this company and you specifically provide an opportunity for me to change the responsibilities that I have to better tailor, because I was even talking about this when I was in Virginia this weekend, as I was like, things are so much better. Like, we've, you know, moved things around so that I am doing things that I feel really confident in my ability to do. And even like in the time that we have done that, like, I feel so much better in every facet of my life.
Yeah.
And they were like, that's amazing. Like, the one girl specifically was like, I don't have that opportunity, so I'm just in therapy trying to like compartmentalize that, like, work is work and the rest of my life is the rest of my life,
because she's unhappy in her role.
She's really unhappy.
She's like, she's struggling.
Yeah, she's saying that it's just not a good role for her, but she loves her company.
Did she pick the role for herself, or did someone else pick it for her?
I don't know. I don't know the full backstory of it, but I know that she's
just in a similar spot.
Yeah, she was in a similar spot that I was
sucks.
in, and I was like, listen, like, I feel you. And she's like, that's so nice that you're able to kind of like tailor your role to better fit what you're good at.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when we first started working together, when I first started at the company, like, you and I were like jiving for like a full 2 years and just like cruising. Everything was going right because I was doing what I'm good at and you were doing what you're good at. And I think the minute that we tried to make me do what you're good at, like, that's where the friction like became very apparent, because I naturally am not going to do things the way that you do them, but the way that you do them is
the way that you want to do them. I think
the way that, well, yeah,
I think you almost wanted to, like,
it's the way that I thought I was supposed to.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really ever gave myself the, like, you're allowed to do this.
Grace to do it your own way. Yeah, like, correct. Grace to do it like, okay, I don't have to be Kristen, and there's not an expectation for me to be Kristen. I need to find my own way to do this. But I think that was struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also, like, I don't know any different than how you do it.
Yeah.
Because I've only ever, I'm trying to model my behavior off of what I've seen you do, because I've never had another like boss. I mean, I've had like internships
another
person
and stuff,
modeling
that.
Yeah, so I just didn't know what that really looked like. So I was like, well, this is the way that you project manage. This is the way you talk to clients.
Yeah.
And I think now that we're on the other side of it, like, things are just like, we're back to me doing what I'm really good at and you doing what you're really good at, and like, we're back to like cruising.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think I want to go backwards a bit with something that you said.
Sure.
I think, like, and mind you, I know all of this is going on, right? Like, from my role and my perspective, which is the part of, like, seeing someone going off a cliff, right? But it's like, I don't want to snatch something away from her when I'm like, I know this is not going well. Yeah. Like, I know this isn't going well. Now, did I know that it was, like, never going to go well? No, because I mean, I think we gave it our fair shot. Like, we hooked her up with mentors and coaches and, put her through that psychological thing to, like, try to see if that could, kind of shake up, like, where are we struggling, or we tried to have more conversations. We tried to we tried a lot. We tried a lot of different things. Yeah. And
for a long time.
For a long time. We did. We gave it a really fair shot, in my opinion, I would say. And so I think it's interesting, though, that when you're saying that it affects you and maybe this is something that you learn, and I think other people might find value in this, is that what I'm hearing is that you just overall felt like you were a failure in just all areas of your life.
Yes.
Because I think part of your identity from being your friend, part of your identity, this is also part of my identity, is being productive in work and being accomplished and feeling, that's part of your identity, is you like to feel accomplished. So when that part of your identity is stripped away from you feel like naked and awkward and like, what even is my purpose? Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that definitely resonates. Like, I am somebody who assigns a lot of value in my productivity, which in that role, I mean, it's not
feeling
like
purposeful too, I think.
It's not like a to-do list type of thing.
Yeah.
Where like I feel like I do really well with like, here's exactly what I need to get done today. And then at the end of the day, I'm able to be like, okay, this is exactly what I need to get done tomorrow, the next day, this week, this month. And that's a lot easier for me than like an overarching, like it's always there.
Sure.
Because I'm really bad at shutting my brain off at the end of the day also. So when I'm able to be like, I got a significant chunk of something done today, that's, I really assign value to that in my brain.
Yeah.
And I was not able to do that for some reason, that like the two did not compute.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's been resolved. But yeah, I'm definitely somebody who assigns value.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, just as like a learning opportunity for other people, and I've heard it however many times, but just because somebody is really, really good in their role doesn't mean that the trajectory for their career should be management, right? Like, I think that's something that we see time and time again. We usually use the example of salespeople, right? Like somebody who's really, really good at sales, let's promote them to a sales manager. Well, what if they're not good at managing people? What if they're not good at those other, what if they're just a really, really good salesperson? And so that was conversations that Carolyn and I had, was like, okay, so, and again, I'm putting a not yet on it, because again, you're still new to work in general, but like you've been at this company for however long. It might just be, there's reasons why, because of who I am, why I'm good at stuff. You are good at things because of who you are. It might just be like a major part of management is emotional. Like it's a major part of it is emotional, and navigating things up and down. It's like people, I think people wrongly go into management thinking that it's, and I even did this when I had my first job in management, was like, okay, I need to make sure that people get what they need to get done, and they need to have deadlines, and they need to have it. But there's this whole other emotional side that takes place that, like, if you aren't equipped yourself to navigate your own, like if you're not anchored yourself emotionally, trying to navigate other people, it's like being in a boat that's like always like this, and then a wave comes because it's like your other person comes and you're just like, it's so hard to navigate yourself and other people. And I think there was a lot of that going on. So that's why I'm saying not yet, because it might be getting you to a place that you feel more secure and confident in yourself, and then you will feel more confident setting boundaries with other people or deadlines or things like that.
Yeah. I'm also like a highly emotional person.
Yes.
In general. So being in a role.
She hasn't cried yet on the podcast, and we're however many minutes in. Honestly, that's a literal shock. I'm sure we'll get there though.
No, but I lead with emotion. Like that is my dominating, I don't know.
But it's
like
good.
A personality trait, but like
I just see it as good sometimes.
I don't. I see it as like, and I think especially in that role, I'm not crying, I had an itch. I think especially in that role, I kind of equated my emotional demeanor as weakness, where I was like, I can't get through a hard conversation without crying. Yeah. And I was just and that would make me more frustrated with myself, and then frustration leads to crying. Like it's just
a hamster wheel you're on.
Yeah, exactly. And I just am somebody that it's just how, I mean, some people yell, some people, scream. Yeah. I just
cry.
Any emotion that comes to me, happy, sad, angry, frustrated.
She's crying.
Good, I cry.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's something, because I take a lot of pride in really knowing my employees, and all of my employees could not be more different. So like something about Carolyn, about her being very sensitive, that's something that has been challenging as a business owner to navigate while also being her friend, because there's an element of me that wants to protect her because of how sensitive I know that she is. But then there's also that other side of me that's like, she's got to buck up. We got to go, we got to, like, you're going to become Because believe it or not, and I've even told Carolyn this, believe it or not, there was a time that I used to be like that. Like, and I remember in like my first and my second jobs, like anytime I got difficult feedback or I struggled with anything, I would literally cry. I remember literally being at that recruiting job that I had, and I would receive and I would just cry. And I know myself that comes from somewhere deeper than just that's who I am, which is for you to navigate and, whatever. And it's just like I used to be like that, and I'm not now. And I think there's things that you have to go through in your life in a professional standpoint that will it's kind of like just your capacity changes, your capacity for different things. You learn how to navigate things better. You find out that like things just like people, it's just not as personal as I think it's made out to be. Like business isn't personal. And because I'm the business owner, like you get hardened in many ways, by certain things. And so I know this about her, and I tried to in some ways protect her while also balancing that for her, that she does need to learn how to navigate those emotions in difficult situations. So that's something that's always ongoing, because then again, I have other employees, Gina's personality is very, very different. And, so it's like trying to navigate that with her is very different, while also having the same care for her that like, hey, here's this girl who's, growing as a person at the same time growing in business. And it's just how to navigate and teach and coach someone as an individual person, as well as you're being your employee, is something that's really, really challenging. Yeah. That part's hard. Totally. But let's keep talking about the year. So Carolyn was obviously in this role, and things were going well, and then they weren't going well. And then I got to a place that I had to apply some serious pressure, because I mean, how long are you I'm seeing it in her, right? There'd be however many times I'm checking in with her and be like, you doing okay? Like, you sure?
And I'd be like, I'm great, actually.
Yeah. And I'd be like, okay, well, we're crying, so we're not. But it's also navigating knowing that she cries about everything. So it's not like, okay, is this something that's like, okay, Carolyn's just crying about something, or is this like a serious, and so I would have to ask a couple prompted questions or whatever. But at some points, I think that would piss her off, because she was like, yeah, right? It would piss her off because she's like, just leave me alone, Yeah.
When I'm trying to do my job.
When at the end of the day, if I may, sure. I think part of what, I think there was a resentment that was built, because in a way I could have done this to her, right? Like I could have done this to her, that I gave her this role, or I put her into this role, and now she's trying to navigate it. And there could be some interesting, like, it's just when you're in that place of feeling the unworthy, incapable, failure, your mind is playing tricks on you. Like, it's not telling you kind things. So I'm not surprised. And I always say this to my employees all the time. There's gonna be times that you don't like me. Do I think that during that period of time, I was Carolyn's favorite person? Absolutely not. I know that I wasn't. Yeah. But like, I also know that I couldn't have been either. Like, I think that part was really good for her from a personal standpoint and a professional standpoint, that she needed to go through that. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's not like a surprise, and we've talked about this, that like we just kind of didn't communicate because it was just so hard. Yeah. And I think that
I wasn't connected to good feelings anymore. Yeah. Like, me was connected to work, which was connected to what was stressing her out, and was connected to making her not feel good. Yeah. So because I was connected to that, I now, if I'm interpreting it from her side.
Yeah, no, that is what happened.
Yeah. Which I knew this. I knew this was going on, but I couldn't force her, which is the tough part that I have to navigate. Like, when you love and care about someone as a friend, but you also love and care about them as an employee, I can't force her to see what I see and know what I know and understand what's going on.
But I think that's a good thing, because I think
for it was horrible for me.
Yes. Sorry.
It was very challenging for me.
Yeah. No, I think selfishly, it was a good thing for me, because I feel like a lot of growth came out of me forcing, pressure.
Yeah. You were in a pressure cooker.
Yeah, and like diamonds come out of pressure cookers. But I think that was really, really necessary for like my personal growth and like that confidence that I had been lacking for the entire year. I feel like I finally was like, you have not even just me. Like, I had several conversations with, different people in my life, and they were like, why are you not having a conversation? I was like, I don't want to let her down. I don't want to, I don't want to let anybody down.
Yeah.
I don't want to, you know, I have said that I can do this role. So the fact that I can't, and then I'm going to come to somebody and say that I can't, like, that's accepting defeat. And I won't do that.
Yeah.
And I sat in that feeling of I won't let somebody down. I won't admit defeat for way too long.
Way too long.
Way too long.
Way too long.
But it was just like a fear thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't want to be the reason that we had to, you know, move things around or restructure stuff or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't want to have to be the reason that anybody has more stress or more on their plate.
Yeah.
While also simultaneously, I think that's what you were just about to say, simultaneously doing that to people because
Correct.
I was...
It's like the drinking the poison thing.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just interesting. Because she's sitting in all of this, right? And again, it's a very narrowed, and I'll say it, it's a very narrowed, in some ways, immature view of it all, which you learn. And it's not that Carolyn's immature. She's very wise beyond her years. But that's a very, like, selfish, only thinking about yourself type of mindset. When it's like, you are impacting other things outside you. So what happened, how I got us out of this, was I applied so much pressure
that I cracked.
That she was good. That she needed to crack. Because again, I'm not a dictator type. I hate micromanagement. I'm not a dictator type leader. I am someone that I'm like, you're gonna come to me and tell me if there's a problem. I'll check in with you and ask, but you got to be honest and tell me. And she wasn't. She was holding out hard.
I was.
She was like, I'm fine. I'm good. And I'm like sitting here. I'm like, no, this chick is not fine.
Yeah.
You know? And then so I applied so much pressure. That she one of two things happen when you apply that much pressure. Either they're like, get off my freaking back, and they rise to the occasion, or they crack and they go, okay, you're right, you know? And so it's interesting. And I think that, and I don't know, maybe you'll agree with this or not, but I think the single-handed best thing that Carolyn learned from this past year, both as my friend and as my employee, is prior to this year, you have been the type of person that lets things happen to you and you just take them and you kind of lay there.
Yeah.
I think for the first time this year, Carolyn learned how to throw a freaking punch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I think she learned how to throw a punch.
Yeah.
Because there's a time that you get to a place in your life with whatever it may be that you get so sick of your own shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That you just get it. Like you guys can visualize this, right? You're just getting jabbed, like jab. And you're just like, ow, ow. You know, you're protecting yourself. And whatever. I think Carolyn learned she came out with a little jab and I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I was very proud of her for doing that because that's something in all of her who she is, she would not throw a jab.
No.
And you need to throw a jab. Yeah. Sometimes you need to show that you're willing to fight a little bit for yourself. Yeah, you got to show your teeth, and I think you showed your teeth. So I don't know if that speaks to you at all, but
yeah, no, I definitely am like a peaceful. I like everything to just be peaceful, and my version,
which isn't realistic though.
Yeah, my version of peaceful is like a very sweep it under the rug type of peaceful, which is not. It's avoidant for sure. But, like, it's not long-term peaceful. And I think that I did that for so long. And there was one specific day that I was just like, it was the day that I left here. And you were like, everything's fine. Like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm awesome. And
I'm like, dude, you're not about to leave my house and go to a client.
And I was like, I have to. Like, I have to go see this client.
And I'm looking at you and I go, look at me. You're not leaving. I don't care what you think you have to do, Billy Big Balls, and where you think you got to go.
Yeah.
But I said, you're going to get yourself straight before you walk out of here.
Yeah. Which I did not.
She didn't. We took a couple deep breaths.
Yeah, I did my best to, like, get out the door. And then it was just like...
the steam was coming out the pot, guys. I mean, like, at a certain point, you can't do that to yourself for so long.
That was kind of the breaking point. And that night, I remember having a conversation with Zach, and he was just like, just have a conversation. Mm-hmm. Like, what is so big and bad about this that you can't have a conversation?
And what was it?
I think it was just fear.
Fear of what?
Fear of failure. Fear of disappointing people.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. She has this inflated, and I am honored by this in a sense too, that I would say both my employees have this. They respect me a lot and they like working for me a lot, but I think almost so much so sometimes, whatever for the dynamic is, that like there's an inflated sense of scariness of me. Like I'm a big scary monster sometimes. And that could be something that I'm doing, I'm sure, as well. I could be contributing to that. I think part of it's my personality as well. Like, my personality is very
take no shit.
Yeah. And I've noticed, and it's funny, when we meet another client that also has what I would find a similar personality to me, they're scared of the person. And I'm like, oh, I think that person's kind of like me. When it's like, we just don't take any BS, and we just know it doesn't mean that we're mean people or whatever. I tell you how it is, and some people just don't like that. So I know that I could also be enabling and contributing to that, but I think it created this like huge inflated, like what you envisioned that conversation looking like, and what you envisioned admitting defeat, and then maybe how I would react and whatever probably was completely different than what actually happened. Yeah. Maybe?
Yeah. No, I definitely was very trepidatious to have that conversation because I just didn't want to ruin.
Yeah, what'd you think was going to happen?
I don't know. I just thought it was going to like ruin our dynamic of like
worker friends.
Me and Gina working together.
Okay.
Because I was like, right now, like, I know my role, and Gina knows her role, and you know your role. And if I come in here and I take the snow globe and I shake it up, then like, what's gonna happen? It's like this big scary in your head, but you don't actually like have any proof that that's gonna happen. So,
which is what happens, employees, when you take on someone else's job. Carolyn in that moment was taking on my job and trying to figure out how the organizational structure of the company was going to happen if her role changed.
But to be fair,
which is honorable.
But also to be fair, like that was kind of like there was an element to my role that was supposed to be forecasting stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So I was kind of just
it's
like,
good that she's thinking about it.
It was kind of just like, I obviously want the company to succeed. I've worked very hard to see this company succeed, and I don't want to be the reason that like we have to scrap whatever we've been working on or whatever we've been doing to try and make this team cohesive.
Which I think is interesting too, because on top of all of this, I think because of the way that you were feeling about me at that time too, I think you weren't giving me any credit to be able to like harness and navigate and figure it all out.
Yeah.
Until we had the actual conversation. Because to me, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew exactly how I was like, because I have to play a lot of being, and I was talking about this with my other CEO friend, like a part of being a business owner is you're constantly playing this game of chess from behind the scenes, right? You have to like, you just have to always be assuming the worst, assuming the best, assuming a medium, assuming a this, no matter. So I already had this whole thing figured out with her. I'm not like waiting on Carolyn to determine the future of the company, right? Like that would be insane if that's what I was doing. But I'm playing out different scenarios in my head. Like, okay, if she stays here and she doesn't, get better or worse and doesn't admit that some things are going on, we've got that would be a soft, like a character thing at that point. That would be different than like capabilities, because to me, like, I'll keep somebody, whatever. But it was never a question with her. And I think I said something like that to you during one of the meetings that we had, which was something like, it's okay if this role is not for, how did I said something like that.
You asked me several times. Like you were
I gave her the out, guys.
But it was not, and
I don't blame her for it. I get it.
Yeah. She asked me several times, like, if you don't want to do this anymore, if this role does not fit what you're looking for anymore, that is okay.
Yeah, because how are you going to know if you like to do something until you're doing it?
And every single time that you asked me that, I would say, no, I want to do this. Because I think I also was trying to prove to myself that I could. Yeah. I was trying to say, like, this is like the next step. You should be able to do this because you've been able to tackle every other step that you've taken prior. So I don't understand why this is such a big step. And I think that was a big part of it too, is just like getting over myself and my own like ego, yeah. Is just like, I should be able to do this. Like, other people my age can do this. Why can't I? I'm a big comparison girl.
Yeah, she compares a lot to other people because it's like,
which is your 20s.
Else that's doing that.
That is the definition of your 20s. People do not talk about how your 20s is quite literally like a second puberty. Like it is.
Oh, it's worse though. Because you have money.
Finding your
you have a credit card.
Literally, it is finding yourself all over again, because for however many years, 18 years plus if you go to college, like you are in a school setting. You are regimented. You are by the books. You are doing all of these things.
Telling you to do
Everyone's telling you what to do. And then suddenly you are floating. And so I don't think it's weird that people with my same personality type come out of college and are still craving that, like, somebody's here to tell me what to do. So they bump up the importance of an authority figure, and it's ingrained. Like, it's natural to my brain to think like that. So I think as soon as I didn't have that structure where, like, I was the one that was supposedly calling the shots when it came to client stuff, subcontractors, all of that, I was like, well, who's going to tell me what to do? Like, where are my rules? Like, where's my list of things that I need to follow? Where's my syllabus? Like, I just didn't.
When part of it is her making that, and that,
correct.
It's like you wanted to make your own way, but you also wanted to be told how to make your own way.
Exactly.
Like, it was very
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Because I talked to Joe about this. Joe's my mentor. Love him. He's the best. But he said, like, what kind of project manager do you want to be? And I was like, what do you mean?
Which is
no
a great
idea
question.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be, like, I just need Kristen to give me a list of how to project manage, and then I'll be able to do it. And he was like,
and I'm sitting here being like, girl, find your way. And she's like, no, give me a list. I'm like, I can't tell you. I'm not going to tell somebody
how to be a project manager.
I'm not going to tell them who to be.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell someone who to be. And because I didn't appreciate when people told me who to be, because again, I hire people because they're smarter than me and they're better than me at the job.
Yeah.
And I'm just really good at leading people to do their jobs really well. But like, Carolyn is way smarter than I am. Gina's way smart, but they could run circles around me in every single way. Like, from just how they do their work, how they think about their work, how they kept, like, they're both way ahead more than whatever than I was. The only difference between me is I'm really good at leading people, and I'm good at leading and getting people rowing in the same direction and whatever. And it's just funny that I knew that she wanted me to tell her, but I'm like, that's not the job. Yeah. Like, that is like that. Yeah. That's your old job. Like, that's not, you need to find how you want to lead people and how you want to manage, because you have to build your own relationships with these clients. And you have to, if you build it just because if in a sense you're acting, you know what I mean? You're trying to act, and maybe in some ways you're trying to act like me, but that probably felt uncomfortable to you.
Yes.
And because it's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
And so, it's all interesting.
Yeah.
So you want to tell them about the conversation that we had?
Sure. Do you want to tell them?
Sure. So it was funny. It got to a point that any employers are dealing, with it. I think every employee, I mean, whether it's called a performance plan or a whatever, like, pretty much it's just like, you and I got to get on the same page. That's all that it is. It's like, you've got an employee, you've got somebody at your company that you're like, we are not on the same page. We got to get on the same page. So you just like write it all out and whatever. So Carolyn and I did that. We had a really good time doing that. And it was funny that even after we did that, things were still delayed. There was still, like, even in the thing that had the deadline, it was the deadline that would be getting delayed. So that made me a little nervous. But so we're like going through all of this or whatever. And it got to a point, something happened, and it just threw me over the edge, because I was like, this is our favorite client. This person should have priority. It was just like literally the absolute last second, and then some, that we could have sent something. So I got pissed off. And I think it was that next week that I was like, here's the deal. We're not operating like this anymore. And I was very stringent. I was like, you need to work with me. We got to figure this out or not. And so I put her in the pressure cooker she was already in, that she put herself in. I then put her in one and turned up the temperature probably another 1,000 degrees. Yeah. Because I was like, we got to figure this. I'm not doing this anymore. I was like, I don't like the way, because I don't like what I'm witnessing her go through either, right? Because I know Carolyn is a happy, healthy, and whatever. Yeah. I even see in her personally that she's not doing well. So it's hard as a boss to watch an employee be struggling. So, and I know there's a lot of bosses out there that don't care about that. I do care about that. I want them to be fulfilled by their jobs, and I want them to feel purpose, and I want them to be happy. There's a major element of every time that they go through a new job thing, I ask them what they like doing. That's important to me, because I think if you're not fulfilled in your work, I could be on that soapbox forever, but I think you're not going to be happy, and I want people to be happy. So I turned this pressure cooker up so hot to a point that I was even pissed about what I was going to have to do to get this situated, but I knew it would solve the problem quickly. And it needed to be solved, because I was like, this thing has been rolling for it was a year.
It was Yeah, I think at that point, like,
it was a year.
Months. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm turning this thing on high. And it probably was another maybe week after that you cracked, I would say, right? And I didn't want her to crack. The option at that point was either you're going to swing at me, which I wanted her to do. I wanted her to either swing at me and fight back a little bit and go, screw you. I don't want to be, I don't want you to be breathing down my neck. I don't want to be in your office. And they'll either do one or the above. They will like rise and get so pissed off that you're breathing down their neck, or they're like, okay, you're right. I got it. And she did, the crack one. So she sends me it was a text, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, she sent me a text, which we didn't really talk all that much anymore, right? Yeah. Like, we really didn't communicate as friends really at all. Like, we just didn't really talk about it. And so she sent me this text and was something about, like, can I come over to your house, whatever? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't think that she was, like, going to quit or anything. I didn't think that, but I knew something was going on.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, sure, you can come over, we talk about it, whatever. And I didn't really have any expectations for that conversation, because I think just at a certain point, like, I just feel confident in my ability to navigate something difficult. So it's like, I was like, all right, she wants to come over. And then I remember I responded, because knowing her personality, trying to honor her, I was like, do you want to meet somewhere more neutral or whatever? Because I recognize being in your boss's house, having a difficult conversation probably could be pretty intimidating. So, but she's like, no, I'll just come over. I was like, all right, cool. So
I knew I was going to cry. I didn't want to do it in public.
There you go. But me, I was thinking about like her, right? Being like, okay, it's probably pretty intimidating to like have a emotionally, charged conversation with your boss in their home. But we ended up, sitting over here and talking
on this exact couch.
On this exact, a lot has happened here. This is a professional couch. The other living room is the comfort couch, the cozy couch, the good conversations. This is the bad conversation couch. But so we were just sitting and talking and stuff, and she really, I mean, I was very impressed with her.
Oh,
how she handled that conversation. I told you that.
Yeah.
I the first thing I said when she just started going, she goes, I know I'm gonna cry, and she had her little note.
I did. I had a note. I had a written out.
Eyes. They do listen to everything that I say. And so she had, I always say when we have emotionally charged conversations, we're gonna write down what we have to say so we don't forget anything. And she did. She had.
Yeah, and I started out by saying, I know that I'm going to cry in this conversation, but I don't want you to cloud the way that I'm saying something with what I'm saying, because I think a lot of the times, like when and this is also something that I think about
you have in your head more
in
my
than I have exactly in my what head, I was just gonna say. When I start to cry, I lose credibility for what I'm actually saying, because like you can't.
You're also told that though, very much so. I will be honest, and that's even come out of my mouth before too. That I was like, if you cry in a meeting, you're done. So I get it. I get why you.
Yeah,
think that.
I feel like it's just clouds what you actually are saying, because it's immediately like, oh, this person is emotional, not logical. Mm-hmm. And like, I strongly believe that you can be both. And like that it's just a pendulum, and like I can be logical, but the way I'm going to say it is going to be through tears. And it's just like it's just how my emotions manifest themselves is liquid.
But it's good though. It's good for her role. So we were having this conversation. She's going through her list, and we're talking about a couple things, and she just admitted defeat in a sense. Yeah. Like, and again, I didn't want to defeat her, but I needed her to pick something, because I'm a problem solver. I don't sit in mud for a long period of time. She likes to sit in mud, and we'll work on that. I'm okay with like a little dip. You could roll around a bit and then like get out, but like she'll sit in mud, and I'm like, we're not going to sit in mud anymore. So what are we going to do? We're either going to decide that we're in mud and we got to figure out how we're going to get out of it, or we're going to turn mud into, I don't know, something else better. But it was just interesting. And so she really admitted, her defeat and her feelings associated to it and how she was feeling. And I was really proud of how she handled it. And it showed to me her growth just as an individual in that meeting, to be able to sit down, have that conversation, write it all out. I mean, that in itself, like if we had to go through everything that we went through in that year, I am thankful that we went through it, because the amount of growth that I saw in her in that meeting was huge. Yeah. Imagine the bravery that takes, guys, to write that down and go to your boss, whom you also have a personal relationship with. I mean, like, really, think about this bravery to bring that up and then admit defeat, but then go, I still want to be here if you'll have me. Like, that's kind of really what you did. Yeah. Which is great. But the bravery that takes is huge. And so the first thing I remember her going through all these things, I said, hey, the first thing I want to say is I'm proud of you for having this conversation with me, because that's a big conversation to have. Like, one that I don't know that I would have been able to have at your age. Like, and I was thinking about where I was when I was 26. And it's funny because I hate sometimes that they only see me as the owner of this company and they never got to see me when I also was their age. Cause like I was equally confused. You know what I mean? Like that's the best way to say it. Like I was learning life the exact same way that they are. And there's times that I wish I could be like, roll the tapes. Like, and I could show them how I struggled with, you know, emotional stuff and I cried at work or I didn't make the right calls, whatever. But they see me as this fearless leader now. And they didn't see me as this person who was very human and exactly like them, dealing with all the things that they're, and I don't know that I would have been brave enough to have that conversation. So that's a huge kudos to her to do that. And then from there, I was like, okay, now we can do something.
Yeah, now we can actually like move forward.
Yeah. She's admitted it. That's like what, 80%, they always say that's like 80% of the problem. Yeah. Admitting we've got a problem is 80% of the problem. So that was great. So we admitted. So it's like, all right, now we only got to do 20%. Yeah. And so we addressed the obvious, you know, about different things and her responsibilities and her pay and, you know, whatever. We had to talk about all these different things. And it went really, really well. And we both agreed that like, hey, it's not going to be a snap thing because I also have fully changed what I'm doing based off what you're doing. So yeah, we've really worked that out. So, it was a great conversation. I think we also addressed the personal side of things as well. Yeah. That there was assumptions that had been made on both and that I had a feeling something like this was going on. I had a feeling that she was pissed at me for something and I didn't know for what. And I'm not the type of person, and Carol knows this, to be like, what are you mad at me for? Like, I'm not that type of person. So Carol, I'm never gonna ask.
I'm not the type of person to be like, I'm frustrated with you because like I will never.
So that's not a good mix.
I'll never come to you with a problem.
No, so that's not a good mix.
I will now.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot better about it. And I think honestly, like to your point about the growth, and that's why I said earlier that like it was a good thing because I feel much more confident to have those hard conversations. Yeah. Because I've seen that the outcome is so positive that like I feel so much more confident. I feel so much better. And I feel like it's a lot easier for me to have those conversations now. Sure. To the point where like if there was something bothering me, I feel a lot more comfortable, which I'm not there yet, but I feel a lot more comfortable to be like, hey, I would love to have a conversation about this and like why this happened and how we can mitigate that moving forward.
Well, and that's, and I love that. I think I've used this, like, because I've even talked about it, like, with dating and whatever, but it's the same type of thing. You learn a behavior, right? So you learned that behavior somehow, that it's not safe to provide feedback to an authority figure for whatever reason. She learned that, right? And I know that she knows this.
Art school.
Yeah. So, like, I know this to be true about her, but at the same time, that's the part that you have to honor your employee as an adult and be like, I'm not going to force you to be like, you're mad at me because clearly there's something, because it's like they have to get there on their own. But it's like that scenario that I think I don't know that I've brought up on the podcast before, but it's like if every dog that you've ever met has bit you, and then there's this other like cute whatever that comes up to you, you're going to think that that dog's going to bite you until you learn from meeting more dogs that you're like, okay, this one's licks and this one's cuddles and this one's cute and this great. I think I've usually related that to dating, but it's just any learned behavior. Like if every dog you've ever experienced has growled at you and been, what's going to make you think the next dog is going to want to kiss your face? Like,
what's going to make you think the next dog is going to have her nose hidden
literally in
her arm because she's chilly?
She's just the cutest dog ever. But so I get it. So it's navigating all of that. But that conversation was really, really great. And it was interesting. I think it was I remember I slept really great that night. Yeah, I think you did too. Yeah. Because your mind's just working on it, right? Like in our relationship had been so just, there's so much friction for so long.
Tumultuous, yeah.
Yeah, there was just so much friction for so much long on a personal, and like I was mad at her too, right? Because I'm mad at her because I the amount of grace I tried to extend, but also knowing that she's just like she's like white knuckling whatever the problem is. And I'm like, dude, I know that this is bothering us. Like this is affecting us, but she was just kept white knuckling it. And then I start getting pissed at her too. Right. Yeah. So there was so much of that going on, but I can't force you to do anything either. So overall, very good. Yeah. And I think after that conversation, it was wonderful. And we learned a lot about it. And we learned what we're going to do in the future. Because there will always be times that we're not going to like each other. And I think that was even part of that conversation that I remember saying to you was I was like, how did I say it? That I was like, Carolyn, do you seriously believe that we're going to go through work for however long and we're never going to have a disagreement? Yeah. I think I said something like that. And just that unrealistic expectation. Because we have two of our, and I want to have this conversation. I know they're going to listen to this podcast, but two of our friends just started working with each other. Yeah. And so I foresee and know there will be conflict. There always is going to be conflict. So I've actually wanted to speak with both of them about that and maybe they'll listen to this and they'll navigate it, but yeah, there will be conflict.
Yeah.
There will be conflict. There is never a relationship, whether it's personal relationship, friendship, or whatever, that you're not going to have conflict with that person. That means that secrets are being kept, which they were. Things were getting avoided and secrets were being kept.
Yep.
Or you just don't care that much.
Yeah.
And
that was not the case. I think both of us cared a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And it was
that's why we were hurt by it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of what made it so difficult, was it was just like that resentment piece where it was just a quiet resentment. And it was like I didn't want to stir the pot, or whatever the correct phrase is. Yeah. But by not trying to do that, I was doing that.
Sure.
And that was very hard.
Yeah, especially with my personality.
Yeah.
With my type of personality. But I remember too, like at the end of that conversation, I remember I said to her, because I wanted, like, there's something about me, I'll provide somebody an out, you know, like I'll provide them or whatever. And I remember saying to her that I was like, hey, like if we have to step back from, however I said it, I was like, if we have to step back from our personal relationship to allow the business relationship to thrive, like I'm okay with that. Like we can do that. And I remember that's when you started crying. You're like, no, if anything, I would rather be your friend, however you said it.
Yeah, I said, I think I would rather be your friend than your employee when it comes down to it.
Like if we had to pick.
Yeah.
If we had to choose.
Yeah.
And so that was big for me to hear too, though, because I was thinking it was going to probably be the opposite. Yeah. And so we always were on the same page. We just weren't talking to each other.
Yeah.
So learn from us.
Yeah. Get into business with people that you can communicate with.
Yeah. And make sure you can communicate well. And like make sure you're very self-aware. Because I would say both of us are very self-aware. But there's times that, you know,
I would
you're
say
not 100%
that I'm
self-aware.
Like not that self-aware.
No, I would say you're very self-aware.
I feel like I'm better than I was, but I feel like that's part of being in your 20s.
I think you're self-aware. I think just some of the things about yourself you either don't love or no. I think you don't love or you're not uber confident in them.
Yeah.
Like, cause like the emotional thing, you hang that with like negativity and I hang it with a lot of positivity.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to get like there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just, I think we could literally do a whole episode about your 20s and how
we could
exhausting they are. They are the trenches.
Yeah,
like,
they're the character building years.
So hard to try to pave a path for yourself while you don't know who you are. Because it's like, how do you know that that's the right path?
You don't.
How do you know that the decisions you're making are not going to negatively impact you for the rest of your life? But like, I hate that. I hate that.
You don't.
But at the same time, like I've come to peace with the fact that that's what has to happen. Is like that kind of like jump.
Because I think your 20s is just, it's a buffet. You know, like your 20s is just a buffet, and like you have every option to the world available to you, but you just got to figure out like, oh, I don't like the taste of that very much, or like seconds of that, or whatever.
Yeah, or like I don't want to fill up on one thing, so I can try everything.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of like inevitable. If you like something a lot, you're gonna fill up on it.
Yeah, and so I think you see it as a buffet, and then you just kind of trim up what you like and what you don't like based through experiences. But yeah, all those experiences are gonna be good things and bad things, and both are equally important. You know, learning what you like and what you don't like, and you have to learn that through experiences of things that are uncomfortable, and that's how you learn to never do something again because you hate that you had to even go through it once.
Yeah.
So but I mean, overall, we're in a great spot now.
Yeah,
much better. Unless you're lying.
I'm not.
I'm just kidding.
I'm not.
I know she's not lying.
things are so much better, and I think that there's also like we are still improving.
Yeah.
Like we're still growing. We're still evolving.
Because this is my first time too, guys. You know what I mean? Like this is my first time being a business owner and a manager and a leader, and you know, leading people that are younger versions of myself in some ways. And like there's so much that goes into that, and for especially being a manager that actually cares about their team, that brings a whole other level of complexity. If I didn't care about my employees and I just saw them as employees, this would make this a hell of a lot easier in some ways, and maybe that's a lie I'm telling myself, but like that you just care about your team and you care about your employees. And so we're at a much better spot, and we have a good plan for what we're doing moving forward. So hopefully, if anybody's listening to this podcast, I hope you got a couple things from it. If you're working with a friend, or you're working with someone who you want to become friends with or whatever, just know that that's going to come with complexities. But I would say the biggest thing is just going to be communication, honesty. Don't avoid anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have
And even
else.
if it's not a personal relationship, if you're working with somebody that you feel is almost opposite of you, like reap in the benefits of that, because we work so much better when we are jiving in our own roles,
Respective spots.
Yeah, exactly. And like, don't try to do what they do best. Just really focus on what you do best, and if you have that opportunity, and just really focus on how you can complement each other rather than trying to like cannibalize each other, because it really makes a world of difference when you are like trying to reach an end goal. If you have somebody that's holding you up and not like trying to get in your lane.
Yep. And that's another opportunity for a tip. I appreciate you bringing that up. Like, I remember when I first started hiring for my business, I was like, somebody, I know exactly who it was, but I'm not going to throw them under the bus. But they were telling me, they're like, go find another you. Your first hire needs to be another you. And I just trekked the world for this person that was even remotely like Kristen Pucci. And at the end of the day, you're not going to find somebody else that's exactly like you. I wish that they told me to find somebody who's the exact opposite of me. I wish that they told me to find someone that was the exact opposite of you. And, you know, people that have skills and things that are very different than you, so that way they can fill the voids, and that way you guys can help, you know, support each other. Because like, me and you work a certain way, me and Gina work a certain way, you and Gina work a certain way, and it's good that we're all so different. And in this ideal fake world that we believe in our head, they're like, oh, if we just all were more similar and we were all the same, that would drive you nuts. Like, that's a lie that you believe, that you want everybody to be the same and think the same and whatever. That's you're leaving your whole backside. Yeah. It's such a threat, you know? So it's so good that we all think differently. We breathe differently. We have had different experiences. We go through life differently. So it's so good. So overall, very thankful for the conversation that we had. I'm very thankful for Carolyn. I'm very thankful for our friendship and our business relationship. Who knows what the future holds with both of us, but I know that we are better equipped because of this past year, we're better equipped to handle whatever it is that comes at us.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to leave the people with?
No,
What if anybody wants to reach out to you?
I echo all your sentiments. If you want to reach out to me, please don't. I get really overwhelmed.
She does.
No, I'm just kidding.
Email me and I'll forward it to Carol.
I'm just kidding. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah. LinkedIn. Yeah, that's a good spot.
Find my Instagram.
Yeah, find her Instagram.
You can find me anywhere.
Just message her. Like, if you're someone who's dealing with something like that, I mean, there might be someone listening to this. It's like, I really want to have a conversation with my boss. That was a joke. That was a joke. You can reach out to me. Carol's very approachable. Be nice. But no, I think there could be somebody who listens to this and goes, oh my gosh, like, what was on your list? Maybe, you know what I mean? Yeah. Or how did you navigate that? I think that could be really helpful. And if anybody wants to reach out to me on how, if they have an employee like this or a friend and they don't know how to navigate it, I'm more than happy to kind of coach you through that. There's things I did right. There's things I did wrong.
Same.
So
totally.
Yeah. So I would definitely welcome that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point. And also, if you are in your 20s and you're like feeling extremely lost and like you have no idea which end is up, like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm here to talk about it.
That's so good. So good.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for everyone listening to the podcast today. This one's gone a little long. We'll see if this is a part 1 and part 2. I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, next episode might be me, Carol, and Gina talking about 20s and learning about life and just growing and learning and experiencing and whatever all together. But hope you enjoyed the podcast. Look forward to hearing from you guys and you hearing from me in the next week or so. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was good, Carol.
That was good.
Good job.